Do you dream of joining the ranks of senior executives in your business and being shoulder to shoulders with giants like Sheryl Sandberg and Satya Nadella? If you're currently a director and you're looking to make that leap towards becoming a VP in your industry, a VP in your company, then you're in the right place. In this episode, what I'm going to share with you are the key principles and the crucial skills to make that leap from director to VP. Let's go. Before we begin, it would be important to understand the 4 levels of value in the industry. And these 4 levels of value will apply to any industry marketplace, no matter what industry you're in. It could be technology, it could be oil and gas, it could be healthcare. Regardless of your industry, these are the 4 levels of value in the marketplace. And with each of the 4 levels of value, this is where there's an ascension into becoming executive levels in your career path. When you start out, we start out as individual contributors. And individual contributors are at the lowest level of value in the industry. And the lowest level of value is implementation. Individual contributors are implementers. And then what happens is that eventually there's a promotion, there's an ascension into management. And at the management level, this is where the level of value of managers is unification. At the level of unification, you are using your management skills. You manage people, projects sometimes, processes sometimes, and policies. So that's the second level of value in the industry. And then what happens is that you go from implementation to unification, and the higher level of value is communication. Now, this is where there's a transition, and a really important transition from unification to communication. You were a manager, and now you step up into director level roles. Director level roles, VP roles, C-suite roles, these are all at the level of communication, where communication skills are increasingly the most important. There is communication internal and external, so that's the highest level of value in the industry. Now, there's one more level of value from that, and you go from communication to imagination. Imagination is the C-suite executives, namely the CEO, the founder, the visionary of the organization. And at the level of imagination, this is where they paint the vision of where we are going as a company, the strategic direction as well, and how the impact that they're making in the industry. So when you are a director and you dream of making that leap into the VP, it will be utmost important to be operating from the top 2 levels of value in the industry. The top 2 levels of value being communication and imagination. And this is what I have called the Career Growth Codex. This is the ascension, the 4 levels of value in the industry and how that corresponds specifically to your career growth. When you were an experienced manager at that job level, you acquired some skill sets, some specialized knowledge as well, and your ability to hold teams, to be able to hold them accountable and to be able to build and inspire teams around you. Those were the skill sets you built as a manager. Now, currently as a director, you've expanded on that skill. You have a more expansive responsibility. You also have some fiscal responsibilities in the company as well. So as a director, you've also built some skill sets as director. Now, the skill sets that you have built when you were a manager and as you were currently a director, those skill sets become a given at the VP level. They're a given. They are minimum requirements. Now, when it comes to the VP level, their requirements and the responsibilities are very specific to that role. So what I'm about to share with you are the ABCs on how to move from director to VP. And I'll go through it A, B, C. So each of those principles will start with the letters of the alphabet. Let's get started. Principle letter A. Align and oversee with the governing board. What does that mean? As a VP, one of the most grounding principles to becoming successful as a VP is to be able to align the individual department goals with the goals of the organization at large. As a VP, you're going to be communicating with the C-suite. As a VP, it'll be really important to have a pulse on what are our fiscal responsibilities. Where are we right now as a company and where are we going, right? When you are a director, you're a director right now, and you've had the opportunity to lead teams within a certain business function. However, as a VP is going to have a number of directors reporting to them. And as a result of that, they're going to be providing strategic direction across all departments, relevant goals across all departments that align with the overarching goal of the whole organization. So this is where, yes, it is important to bring your historical knowledge and your historical wisdom that you have developed as the director in your history of becoming of being a director, bring that wisdom, bring that insight into the role as a VP. Yes, absolutely. But one of the additional things that is going to be important in that transition, and it's a big leap from director to VP, one of the most important transitions is to be able to bring on the wisdom and the insight around prioritization, because you're going to be governing across business functions instead of focusing on just one. So the prioritization is prioritizing goals, for each department, relevant for each of the functional departments, prioritizing projects, prioritizing demands. Different directors that are going to be reporting to a VP are going to have different demands for resources, demands for human capital, demands for budget. So this is about prioritization. And more importantly, prioritizing resources. How are they going to get allocated as well? Physical resources, non-physical resources, monetary resources, non-monetary resources. How are they going to be prioritized so that we have fiscal responsibility? So as a VP, you're building a team. You're having teams of directors reporting to you. And does every team understand what their mission objective is? Does every team understand the vision of the whole organization? And does every team understand their business function and how their priorities within the business function and the goals within the business function are going to be aligned with where we are going as a whole company? So this is where, with that clarity and with that prioritization and the wisdom and the insight with prioritization, as a VP, it would be important to know how to build these teams and to build strong relationships that are able to receive your strategic prioritization. Because when it comes to your VP, your role as a VP, prioritization is key. And sometimes you're going to have directors who don't agree with your prioritization, who would want the prioritization to look like something different. So can you build a team that can receive your strategic prioritization? Can you build a team that understands the vision? Can you communicate a compelling vision to them so that they can be intrinsically motivated and so that they can be held accountable for the fiscal responsibilities that you are accountable for? So focusing on that team and those relationships and that accountability with fair exchange, that would be the most important as well for the VP role and how you align and oversee with a governing board. Principle letter B is bring your thinking to the business. As a VP, you heard me say this earlier, one of your responsibilities is fiscal responsibility. And even as a director today, as a director, you already start to have some fiscal responsibilities that are more clearly defined and are more narrow on the spectrum. But when you become a VP, as a VP, you're going to have much broader fiscal responsibilities. So what do I mean by fiscal responsibilities? Fiscal responsibilities are all the responsibilities with clear metrics and KPIs that allow the business to have a competitive advantage over time. It's a sustainable competitive advantage in the industry marketplace. And those are fiscal responsibilities. So when it comes to being a VP, VPs bring foresight when it comes to contributing to the growth of the business. And they bring insight when it comes to addressing specific and certain problems that they foresee or that are happening right now. So there's both foresight and insight. So that means that as a VP, it'll be utmost important for you to be able to understand the grounding principles and have identified some proven principles, field-tested principles, so that your contribution as a VP can be contributed across different business units. And from there, from those grounding principles, a VP is going to be making some hard decisions. And this becomes a day-to-day, making hard decisions with extreme ownership and accountability. Because even if those decisions don't turn out well for the business, and even if the outcomes are less than desirable, the VP is accountable for those outcomes. So that's the extreme ownership part. Being accountable even if things don't go well, but also being able to know how to pivot and navigate that ambiguity. Because as a director, you're currently a director, you're already beginning to make decisions for the business, on behalf of the business. You're involved in strategic conversations. But at the VP level, this takes it to a whole new strategic level. And you're going to be making harder decisions with less and less information available. So that extreme ownership and that accountability is going to be on you in terms of that, in certain KPIs, but in terms of deciding across business units, the principles can help you make those contributions. Principle letter C, communicate with fiscal responsibilities. You have been a manager. You are currently a director. As a manager, you were responsible for supervising. We supervise. As a director, you had responsibilities in terms of implementing to execute executive strategic plans. As a VP, this is where it's important to be able to communicate with fiscal responsibilities because oftentimes the VP is the face of the company. And this is where you're communicating both internally and externally. Oftentimes, VPs are very much involved in diplomatic relationships, internal and external. They're also the face of the company when it comes to large media outlets and press releases. They also represent the company and the mission objectives and also some of the philanthropic efforts of the business as well. So the VP's communication is going to be heard through a megaphone. And the actions of a VP are going to be seen through a microscope. So your communication is going to be most important when it comes to how do I manage diplomatic relationships between all of these people internally and externally, when people come at it with very different perspectives, very different experiences that they bring to the table, very different cultural backgrounds as well, and different opinions about why things are the way they are and how we should move forward. So as a VP, you're coming in, and how can you create unification or harmony so that there is productivity and so that there's innovation? And more importantly, what do you do when there is conflict? How do you manage conflict? How do you manage these differences between individuals so that you can have diplomacy and so that there can be a way forward? Right? So that is communication with fiscal responsibility. Now, if you're listening to this and you're a director right now and you're saying, yes, I do dream of becoming a VP, and that dream is within the next 5 years, this is where I want to be. But you're also understanding that as a director right now, the communications really does need to be increased. The diplomacy, that understanding of how to manage conflict, you don't want to shy away from that. You want to be able to be professional and hold your ground and have that presence, that executive presence there. And if this is what you recognize and you're serious about developing that for yourself, then I invite you to work with me. Below this description, in the description below, there is a link for you to book a call to speak to myself or a member of my team. And this is where we're going to explore how is it that we're going to help you with achieving this goal, with the principles that I'm sharing with you today, the ABCs of moving from director to manager. I'm going to take you by the hand, step by step, so that you can achieve the goal in a meaningful time frame. Principle letter D is develop strong self-governance. With such a tremendous demand on a VP to have that visibility, to have fiscal responsibilities and communication, to be very accountable, even when making hard decisions under the most adverse circumstances, it will be very important to have a heightened self-governance. So what does self-governance mean? Self-governance means having the presence and the awareness to know how you come across to others. Self-governance also refers to being able to manage emotions so that you don't take things personally, so that there's no requirement that people like you, they like your ideas, or that there's agreement that people have to agree with you. And self-governance means that you have the personal empowerment to be able to say the hard things and to make the hard decisions, even when there are powers that be who disagree. And self-governance also means that you have that heightened self-awareness to know what your self-worth is and to have the professionalism to be able to carry through and follow through on those demands. And self-governance also means that you understand what is the path moving forward, that you are truly authentic and genuine in this role, and that this role is a fulfillment of your highest priority in your true life's purpose and mission. So all of these things constitute self-governance. And as a VP, self-governance is truly important, since what you say will be heard through a megaphone and the things that you do will be seen through a microscope. Now, as a director today, you are a director. Up until now, you've had a degree of self-governance. But when you get to the next level, and as I mentioned before, it is a leap between director and VP. It is quite a leap. So then the demands on your self-governance will be even greater when you do make that leap. And principle letter E is to exude confident conviction. Confidence means the belief that I'm going to talk the talk and I'm also going to walk my talk. Confidence means that I know my own self-worth and I know what mission that I have here, and that is aligned with my true life purpose and my top priorities for myself and for the business. The conviction means, can you say the things with belief in what you are saying, regardless of who agrees with you, who does not like what you're saying, or who has a complete opposing opinion to what you are saying. That is conviction. Because as VP, oftentimes you're going to be involved in terms of making hard decisions on what is the strategic priorities right now in the business and what will they be moving forward. So that conviction is important so that all layers of management beneath you, when they hear your recommendations, when they hear your speeches, when they hear your conversations and your directives, that they can feel confident and trust your leadership. So with that, I have prepared an episode in the past where I talked about the 5 rules on how to step up into executive leadership. So if you are serious about this and this is your journey, that 5 rules of executive leadership is coming right up next. I'll see you there.